Today I'm going to start my intro series to how I have my network set up for ad blocking and censor blocking for adult content. So let's get started. I use AdGuard for most of my blocking content. Right now I've got it sorted just by adult content. That flag's not the best because some of this is some NVIDIA stuff that's coming through. But then these IP addresses I have linked to specific computers, so I know who and what these are coming from. I use this glass, which is just a fancy front end set on top of Linux ISC DHCP server. So what we're going to do is talk about how I set this part up, and we will set that up in Proxmox. If you don't have a Proxmox setup, I encourage you to look in the description below. There's a few people I used and have watched to set mine up. This is my dev account, so I'm just going to get this started. I am going to start with a CT. That's where I have the other one, where I have mine set up. We'll give it a host name. We'll call this DHCP Server. We'll give it a password. Confirm that password. All a CT is a not a full desktop. It's not the full blown. It's just working inside of Proxmox. I don't know the best way to explain that actually. What a CT actually is. Anybody watching, throw down in the comments what a CT actually is. I'm using the Ubuntu 20.4 for this. I am going to ramp this up to 16 gigs, and I'm going to run 2 cores to get this thing started. Maybe there we go, 2 cores, and then 2048 and 24. These can both, you can reduce both the CPU and memory. I like setting this a little high at the start so I can get everything set up, runs a little quicker, or at least I feel like it does. Your network, you'll want to set a static IP when you get to this point. So we're going to set this to 10.50.200. In my case, I do 2. And the 16 subnet, 10.50.1.1. So this is the way I like to set mine up. I use a 10.50 as my network, and then I break everything by the last 2 digits here. So typically the way I do it is my range for IP addresses that I hand out will be, I'll usually use 50, so 10, 50, 50, and then 1 through 254 is my DHCP stuff, and then anything else I categorize. So typically 1 is the network equipment. I use 10 for my my personal equipment, and then 60 is for everybody else, and then I categorize within 60, these bank of 10 are for my daughter and these bank of 10 are for my son. Break it down that way. And we're going to leave that the same and confirm. So let's start building our CT. It's going to take a few seconds. And then task OK. So she is done. We'll close out of that. We'll see our CT sent right here. It is ready to boot. So we'll boot it up. Get it starting down here. Jump over to console. And there we are. She's ready to go. So if I type in my username for its root and then the password that we set up, I'm in. So let's get this started. The first thing we're going to do is do a sudo apt update. Oh, what did I do wrong? Sudo's lowercase. It is case sensitive. So there we go. And then we'll do a sudo apt upgrade grad. Jeez. Huh. Well, that's a new one for me. Oh my goodness. Is that the way we're going to be today? We're just going to misspell and capitalize everything? Whew. So again, link in the description how to set up Proxmox. Link in the description to the post that has all of this code in there, so you can just copy and paste. Another great YouTuber on here says it's always this is a good time for coffee. And there we go. All right, so the next step is we're gonna install the ISC DHCP server. So we're gonna type sudo apt install ISC DHCP server. Press enter. Again, let's take a few more minutes. This one's a little quicker than the one we just did. Yeah, there we go. Next step, we're going to configure the DHCP server. That's done through the config file. Now, it already is set up for some stuff, but you need to set it up for your actual network. So I'm just going to clean this all up, because later you see all of this information in a window. So we are just going to configure it all. So you can hold shift and then use the down arrow and it'll get you to the bottom and then back to it. Okay. And then control K cuts it all out. Sure. So now we're nice and clean. If you use the link down below, you'll get this little config file. So here's my config file. This is the basic information you need. These first little bits here are about how long DHCP stuff can be online. I like changing this top one to, here, 72, which is 2 hours, and then this one to 144, which will give us right at 4 hours. And then the rest of this information will get you going. This line right here is the domain name server, and this is where you'll change later when you install AdGuard to adjust to point to your AdGuard server. And then everything that logs into your network will point to your AdGuard server and it'll be filtered. Later on, I'll show you guys how to set up a static IP address and to route around your AdGuard. But for now, that's what we're going to set up, this basic information. So once you get that set, we need to make sure our interface is set. So we are going to nano into the default folder, and we're going to make sure it's set. Mine should be ENS33. Control X. Yes. Sure. If you need to check that, you can type in ifconfig. Oh, network tools aren't installed. I always forget about this. We can try IP real quick. It is IP. Man, I wish I could remember that one. We'll just do apt install net tool. Net tools. Sorry. Okay. Now we're that far. Now we can use our ifconfig. We'll see that this is ETH0 is where that is located. So I need to go back and actually adjust that it was Ian. Good question. ETH call. Yeah. Don't worry, you can always go back and look at this stuff more than once. Perfect. Okay. So once you get your config file set with that ETH0, we can restart our server by typing systemctl restart ISC DHCP server. And then we can just check the status by typing systemctl status. It is active, and she looks like she's running. Perfect. And that's, we have our ETH0 in there. So Control C gets us out of that. Now we're going to install and configure the glass, which is the web interface to make it look pretty. So we're going to start by installing Node.js using the sudo apt good grief, sudo apt install Node.js. Yes. Now, for some of you that are a little more advanced, you know that you can run these commands a little quicker than when I'm running them. I'm trying to keep these classes a little simple. So the next command you run is sudo apt install git. And then the next one you're going to run is sudo apt install npm. Go ahead. Yep. All right. That one is finally done. So next you want to type npm install express. And then get you another cup of coffee. Oh, nope, never mind. Put the coffee down. We're back to work. All right. So now we're going to jump in to a folder, which is cd/opt. Then we're going to clone our GitHub. And this grabs the Glass web service site, however you want to say it, itself. We're going to run git clone and then that address. Link in the description. Yeah. And we want to cd into our Glass folder. We want to make a directory called logs. That comes in the actual install. And then we need to do a cmod on a few files. We're going to do a cmod there and a cmod there. Both these just make them executable. So we're going to run install. We're on sudo npm install. That is actually going to work on a class install. This one, I gotta be honest, I don't know what it actually does. It's sudo install npm install forever space g or dash g, excuse me. Now, as you're looking through, there's these things that'll pop up, say like 54 vulnerabilities, 6 low, moderate, high, yada yada yada. Give them we're not putting this out on the internet anywhere. This all should stay within your internet. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to run a sudo start. We're going to watch, and there she blows. She be running. Okay, so if I go over here to my network, I had 200.2. So if I type in 10.50.200.2, colon, yeah, colon 3,000. There she be. She's sitting there waiting. So if I run over here to my statistics, this information fills in. Your lease information will start filling in as units request. IP addresses. You have your DHCP configurator here. This password is glass admin. I believe it's glass admin again. That's your default password for both of those. This is that config file that we set up. This is the reason I like taking out all that information. It's nice and short, easy to get to. Down here you'll save. It'll double check your syntax, make sure it understands, make sure it can read it, and saves it out and creates a snapshot. So these may not show up because I don't have any. Yep. So your snapshots will all save in here. So if I save this, change this here. Save. And snap. Okay. Let's go to glass setting. We have our leases, config, and right here is where you can change the username and password. Here's where you can set your alert thresholds if you want to use Slack or an email service, SMS service to get that information out to you. I don't use any of these alerts. It's just a DHCP server to me, so I don't use them. I do recommend changing your username and password. There's also some API stuff built into it. You can use this as well, but again, I don't use it for any type of tracking or anything like that other than setting up static IP addresses or and running my DHCP server itself. So right now she's up and running. Things can connect to it. I have 2 in place, so this one's never going to get commands. But let's jump over and look at my production one. So we have stuff running in it. I go look at my statistics. This is where some information is going to show up about MAC addresses and who owns those MACs. Again, I don't really use a lot of this information. I do jump into my leases and see what's got leases in here. I try to keep some of the stuff out of here that I don't need. My wife's Apple stuff I leave in here. We have Xbox servers, some power stuff that show up in here that I need to get mapped to a static IP. But if I jump over to my config file, you'll see I have the basic information here for my DHCP server. And then down below, I have my statics. So if you open up your static, you can type in your host name. You can type in host, give it a name, and then inside of brackets, you add hardware Ethernet, the MAC address of that card, and then the address you want it to have. So I've done that for everything, and everything I want to keep tabs on directly, or give it a grouping, like all my Google Homes and stuff. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I told you earlier, that you can route around whatever you set up as your DNS server inside your home. So what I've done is my equipment, so I don't get any of the ad block benefits or anything. I route around. So my phones, my personal PC, my work laptop, all that routes around the current DHCP server. That way I can use it flat out as if it was just on the internet. But this is how you set up DHCP server and give it a nice little pretty front end. Now, I will say, one thing I did not do is set up when this server starts to automatically start my glass. So anytime I have any network issues or anything like that, I do go back into my network and have to redo it. So what I usually do is in my notes comments for any of my servers, if I have to do anything like that, I will write a note in here so I know I need to run this before I do anything else. That's all for today. Like and subscribe. Let me know how I'm doing. Thumbs up if you like what you see. And I hope to get out in the next week or so the AdGuard video as well.